Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Hey gang, welcome back to the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. This is episode 169. I am your Trek Lord of West Michigan, your humble servant, Charlie Carden, joined by my steady Eddie, my number one in the pod space, Peter Stein. Peter, good morning.
Good morning.
And returning superstar, I would almost say celebrity guest host, Ellie Littlechild from TrekCulture from across the pond. Ellie, it is wonderful to see your face.
Thank you. Celebrity, you say? Ooh.
Well, I'm a big fan of your channel. We've had the pleasure of having both you and Sean on a bunch of different times, and may that continue to be the case. But it's awesome to see you. So we got a big show for you this week, kind of kicking off with some news that nobody I know is excited about, but we'll get to that in a second. But we're wrapping up Star Trek Starfleet Academy Season 1, Episodes 9 and 10, before we say goodbye to Ellie, and then Peter and I are going to jump in to talking about Star Trek The Animated Series. And I was thinking, we always land on Star Trek The Animated Series when Ellie's going to be on. She has to say, I haven't seen it. Have you still not watched it?
Not yet, but I'm nearly there with my Star Trek watch. All I have left now is Enterprise, the animated series, obviously.
Right.
And some of Lower Decks. I've seen some Lower Decks, but not all.
Gotcha. Well, I'll tell you what, when all of those things are completed and the stars align, we'll get you back on for a segment where we can talk about one of those three things, because I would, of course, love your perspective.
Back to talk about the animated series again.
Yeah, again. I know we're trying to leave it behind, but there's always a random episode where if one gets selected, we end up having to chat about it. But anyway, before we jump into all that, I always want to give some love and respect to the awesome folks on our Secret Friends Unite Patreon over at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. All of our shows drop early there, so you'll catch this show on a Sunday, where everybody else in the world is getting it on a Monday. We have great exclusive content, including the wind down now of Peter and I talking about Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica, which you can just find on our Discord, and other perks as well. This is the way it works. You can join up for free, just become somebody who follows us. But even if you join up paid, that first week is free regardless. So you can be free and listen to content, half off your first month jumping on, and then stay on board for as little as $2 a month. So gosh, we would love to have it even as a free member to just know what we're up to. Patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. All right. Well, we go from the happy and the bouncing to bouncy, I should say, to some news that nobody is really excited about. We did receive the news at the beginning of this week that Starfleet Academy will come to an end with Season 2, with Paramount confirming their commitment to Star Trek, which makes me roll my eyes. So everybody I know who's right thinking about this show and who enjoyed it the way that we do is extremely sad. But let's go to Ellie first. Let's get the kind of the Trek culture chat about kind of how you're feeling about this news.
Mm-hmm. Well, I assume that many people might have heard our thoughts on this. We did do a video talking about this. In fact, we've done several videos talking about this, but we'd actually pre-recorded our podcast episode prior to the news being announced this week. So then we did a whole episode recapping Season 1, all our thoughts, and then later that day the news came and we were like, that's timed very well.
Back to work.
Yeah, we had to re-record a little insert for it. But I think my main takeaway here is that it is very sad, but I can't say that I was massively surprised by the announcement. Yeah. The thing is, now it is a business at the end of the day. Television, film, it's show business. And so I think it's very easy for us as fans of something we've really enjoyed watching it to kind of go, why would you get rid of this? Because, it was so great and there were so many elements that we all related to and all these different things. But obviously when you look at it from the perspective of the people with the money, that's not their concern. Their concern is it making a profit? They don't care about our feelings. They don't care about the connection we have to a show. Yeah. So, they're looking at it strictly from a business standpoint, and did it get the ratings, the numbers it deserved?
Having
said that, if you look at most Star Trek shows over the years, most of them are notorious for not having the strongest first season or two. So you can't help but feel like it wasn't really given the opportunity to really blossom and be given that chance. But the nature of television now is so different. There's so much competition that they can't afford to give a show 2 seasons to find its feet. If it isn't an instant sell, an instant win, they're just not going to risk it.
Right.
And that's very sad for us as fans. And I think on a wider scale, the concern now is that there is no new Star Trek in production currently. And on a wider scale, that's really concerning because I also work on a Doctor Who channel. We're in a similar situation there. I'm like, what is going on with all of these iconic sci-fi shows that have been doing so well and suddenly are so uncertain?
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Nail head hit without a doubt. Peter, what do you think?
I'm in the same boat of I wasn't very surprised just based on, and to be clear, I don't have any inside knowledge. I don't know anybody who works in any of this. I just look at things. But it looked to me just how things were getting released and the little bits of news that we were getting it seemed fairly clear to me that we were probably not going to hear anything we weren't going to get anything positive. Now I don't always analyze things correctly, so I could have been wrong, but I was right this time for once.
And you wish you were right about something that made you feel good.
Yeah,
but
usually that's how it works. It's like I wish I was wrong more.
Yeah,
but yeah. So I'm not terribly surprised. They have announced a new film set with something, but we don't know anything about that, and we don't know if it's actually, and we don't know anything other than it's really been talked about. We don't know if there's been like an official pitch or anything else. So I don't know when we'll be seeing something else. And it's sad that like it just kind of ended. And you're right, like everyone has like the first season is notoriously rough.
Right.
Next Generation, epically so.
Yeah. Oh my God. DS9 was tough. Voyager, to your credit, had some tough moments, and they did have a briefer first season, which is 15 episodes. Maybe that's 5 that were even worse that they didn't come up with.
May have been a small mercy. Who knows?
Yeah. Right.
But so it'll be interesting to see how when we do get season 2, it'll be interesting to see if it does break. If it also breaks the season 1 curse and does more solidly with everybody. And then, I mean, you're probably not going to get anyone to rethink the decision because, big corporations don't really do that.
Right.
But it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. And like, it'll, in retrospect, kind of like with Firefly of bygone days, like, was it the right decision?
Right.
With Firefly, not really. So it is sad, and like there's all sorts of crazy crap flying around as to why. But yeah, I'm still curious to see what we're gonna get because we've been told like it's gonna still be that they ramped it up for season 2. So
right. Right. Yeah, there was lots of talk about that. Bob Picardo on stage on the cruise talked about that. I've told the story a million times now, but I was playing pickleball with Gina, which was awesome. And she said, yeah, we'll find out in a couple of weeks if we're live again. And a couple of weeks later, they found out. So, but much to Ellie's point, we're standing at the precipice of a potential another drought that we haven't seen since 2005 when Enterprise went away and we got nothing for another 12 years. And discounting the JJ film, sorry, not that discount. I was speaking of television in this case.
To be devil's advocate, sometimes it is a good idea to take a little bit of a rest so you can recollect everything and figure out where you want to go without the pressure of having to keep churning things out. So I don't think that this is necessarily, the Romulans are blowing everything up, but might not be great. But maybe something good will still come out of it. mean,
Yeah.
I said the same thing. I think a similar situation with Doctor Who as well, as I think
Yep.
for as much as Alex Kurtzman has brought some amazing things to Star Trek, to New Trek and all that stuff, I think sometimes if you have the same group of people for too long, it becomes kind of just the same stories being told slightly
Yep.
differently, but there's no
Absolutely.
variation. You need a fresh pair of eyes to come in and look at the bigger picture. Again, Doctor Who is very similar, I think. Sometimes if you're in charge and you're the person that says yes to everything and makes all the decisions, you kind of get tunnel vision about where the show should be going and not really considering everything else. So I think for as brilliant as he's been and for all the things that he's brought to Star Trek, I think sometimes a little break and a fresh perspective could revitalize the whole franchise.
Right. Whether we like it or not, we're headed in that direction. So all of us who report on this kind of thing, we'll be here to talk to you. We'll be here to hold your hand through it and continue to talk about Star Trek in all kinds of different ways. But in the meantime, we will cherish what we have, including these 2 great episodes of Starfleet Academy to wrap up the season. So let's get into it. All right. So we're talking episode 9 first. 300th night. Quick summary. As the year comes to an end, Caleb must choose between the life he thought he wanted and the life he's built for himself at Starfleet Academy. Meanwhile, Nala breaks protocol in one final gambit to keep a promise to Caleb. So very much going on. Good stuff. Ellie, talk to me about this episode. What do you like?
Well, it's interesting because when I first started watching Academy, I went in very skeptical. I didn't have the highest of expectations. I am not really a big fan of kind of high school teen dramas, even when I was a teen. So I was concerned about what this show was going to be.
Yeah.
But I was pleasantly surprised by the first episode, and every episode there were elements I did like. There were certain elements that maybe I wasn't so sold by. But what I really liked was the wider picture of this season, with Caleb finding his mother, with News Baraka, all that. Those elements for me were what I was more interested in rather than the kind of high school drama elements that we were seeing with the cadets at the academy. So when we get to this episode and we're starting to explore that wider picture more and actually starting to get the resolution to that, I was excited to see more development in that part of the story. So I really enjoyed that. I like that we moved to a different location rather than just being on the Athena as we had been for a lot of the rest of the season. I think also episode 6 was a really kind of high stakes episode and everything seemed to be ramping up. And then 7 and 8 really kind of lowered that again. And we kind of went on a bit of a roller coaster of everything built up. And then I wanted that momentum to keep going. And then it kind of flopped in those next 2 episodes. So I was glad to get back into the action for episode 9. And I really liked Sam in this episode. Obviously, Sam had been on an adventure of her own.
Right.
I wasn't so sold on her at the beginning. I struggled with her as a character.
Agreed. Yeah.
But when we got to episode 8 and, things had changed and her story evolved and developed, when we got to her in episode 9 and saw that change in her personality, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
And then I kind of appreciated how she had been portrayed beforehand and it made more sense.
Right. Yeah, character growth, which is reflective on what we were talking about before in the first season of a show. I think that's a tough angle for you to have a character that comes on and so intensely was a certain way, which I also really didn't connect with. But again, she was a very young acting character and whatever it is, and it really didn't click with me. But yeah, then that change where she had to basically be rebooted and have a new, light, have a, inner light moment in the episode that you referred to the same, blah, 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 in the last grouping of episodes where she came back around and was reintegrated with the Doctor as a parent figure. I thought it was extremely well done. No, I like that. I like that a lot. So, Peter, how about you?
I would tend to be in the same boat. Which I know I say a lot when we are talking about these things.
Yeah.
But I did like how I also liked the change in Sam. Like when she appeared on that shuttle when Caleb was trying to be sneaky and failing because, that's what happens.
Right.
it's like you have a sentient computer program who knows exactly where you are all the time. Like, it's not going to work. But I just thought that was funny.
Yeah.
But like when she pops in and then she like her whole demeanor is different. And it was like, okay, this version of the character I can get behind. This version of the character I'm more okay with. Like there's a little bit of, and it's not every character I want to be like this. Like everyone has to be a little bit unique in terms of that. But like there's a little bit more of a spunk there, rather than just, oh, I'm so happy and everything. And because that drives me nuts. to be fair, it just drives me nuts.
Well, it's just, it isn't the kind of,
it's just,
character sophistication you're kind of looking for,
Well, and it's just also just, I mean, just my personality just doesn't get along with that kind of person. So I get secondhand embarrassment from watching that. And so I don't want to deal with it. But my qualms aside, I liked that she was much more, she felt more grounded and realistic. And so I liked that. They were still using Dareem as a comedic punching bag, which I know I've said multiple times is not my favorite function for that character.
The barfing glitter just doesn't land for me. It seems like it would be at first would have been like, oh my God, it's kind of silly, but to just like that, it's like the I didn't do it boy, like as Bart Simpson. If you're familiar with that episode of The Simpsons, he had a catchphrase and they built a whole episode around how it was big and then it crashed, and so that's his I didn't do it boy moment. It's the barfing glitter.
Yeah, and it's one of those like there was like some character development with him during the show a little bit, but he's while it's not quite the same, he still kind of fits in my Draco Malfoy box that I put him in episode 1. Yeah. Which I don't exactly like, because there's a lot more you could do with that character, being that he's like the only one of his species at the academy. Going to find his mom, definitely like where Sam was able to trigger Caleb to unlock the command code, the encryption. And it's like, oh, suddenly he has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of messages over the last couple of years. I was like,
leaving all those emails unread.
It was one of those like, I mean, it's an interesting reveal, but part of me is also like, hasn't thought of that in like 15 years. Okay.
And he's a genius. Yeah, you're right.
He is like really, really smart. And all of a sudden it's like, boom, now it's everything. And like, and she also didn't try to find him because she thought he was dead. But then they were both like going around doing criminally things and going to prisons. And it was just like, there's a lot of chatter that goes around with that sort of thing. So just, again, this is me being nitpicky, but it just kind of, it stretched my credibility a little bit. With the fact that they were separated, but they did have communication somehow. Yeah. And so that was a little weird. Once they knew that, finding her was super easy, barely inconvenience. So if you've seen that YouTube channel, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh my God. Religiously watch that channel.
But yeah, I did like when they brought Tatiana back. She did a great job.
The She-Hulk.
For me, it's definitely super strange seeing her in close cropped hair, because everywhere else I've seen her, like in Orphan Black or She-Hulk or wherever, she's always got longer hair. So it's like, so it's just like the proportions feel wrong. It's not. It's just my brain.
It's just an actor doing the acting thing.
Yeah, it's just actor doing acting things, but it's just funny. And then we have like, there's a whole bunch of stuff where they get kind of lost, and then he thinks about not coming back to Starfleet. But then you see kind of this found family thing kind of come back, and he goes back to save his friends, which is really nice. Like, that is a character development moment that did have build up through the whole show and did have payoff. That was exceptionally well done. I want people to hear me say that. That was really well done. And so that was great. We only had like one quick scene with my favorite man, Kelrick, and the Vice and Admiral Farrer. We only had like a really brief scene with those two in this episode.
You just called him Admiral Ferrer, which I think is hilarious because that's the actor's name.
I know.
Admiral Vance. And why is and his? I noticed between his beard got super big. So big crisis, can't trim your beard. I try to do it once a week myself.
Either that, or he's preparing to do another Mummy film, and they decided he needed a bigger beard. I don't know.
Yeah, could be. Well, yeah, I thought that wouldn't surprise me.
So that was good. The classic thing of him not giving an order so that she doesn't have to break it was like, okay. But then they fly out there with just a skeleton crew, which of course can never go wrong, and then save the cadets. And, then we get kind of the end of the episode.
Right.
So overall, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
There's some plot contrivances, particularly with getting the Athena out there that I know, as you've heard me about the entire show, I tend to gripe more about the adult side because there's some things, but overall pretty good, and had a really good bunch of character payoffs for the cadets. So
yeah, without a doubt, as you said, and as we've all been saying, a first season of any show is a lot about kind of finding your way in any format. Sitcoms are notoriously bad for it. Star Trek has had some serious stumbles around that, and this show, I would go so far to say this is, and I guess I kind of discount Lower Decks because it was, pretty consistent and silly. But as far as the first season of show, certainly in the modern era, this is my favorite. This is where I think that they've done it the best. Yeah, I love little quips here and there. I enjoyed Sam referring to, hey, she used the word space salsa. If you jump to warp without the inertial dampers or whatever it is.
I forgot about that. That was a really funny line because every other book that I've read always talks about if you turn off the inertial dampeners, you become a 1-inch thick layer of protein on the view screen. I think space salsa is much funnier.
Space salsa wins for me. I'd almost change that to the name of the episode. I'll think about it. I like little tweaks, like when Tatiana is using her device when she's trying to, I think, create a code to break through or something. It's the same, like my brain registers. It was the same noise that was coming out of McCoy's device that healed Chekhov's wounds in Star Trek 4 when they were in the hospital on the 20th Century Earth. Just weird little things. Like the sound library that kind of never goes away. Tig makes any episode great. All three of them can kiss my ass, I think she says in the end as they're trying to get away. And again, the Omega particle, they've not been able to harness this for 1,000 years almost since we discovered it in Voyager 750 years. When are they just going to give up? Because it's too dangerous. But I mean, we deal with that a little bit more obviously in the next episode. But this was pretty solid. Probably a 9er out of 10 for me. Just because, you get kind of a big blowout. Everybody kind of gets all their aggressions out when I keep calling him Ezra in my notes because he's like Ezra Bridger from Rebels, as I've said, and he's like Aladdin as well. So yeah, when he has a big blowout, kind of trying to push everyone away to save his feelings, but then again, he does a big flip and comes back and saves them all. I like that. A predictable moment, sure, but what isn't predictable in some way, shape, or form. So it's great stakes, tons of emotion, the big mother and child reunion, nice cliffhanger from one week to the next, which of course we as screeners, we just watched the next episode. It was no big deal, but for the rest of the world, it was very emotional, peaking. So Ellie, if you were to give a out of 10 rating, where do you land?
Oh, do you know what? I did give this one a rating on our podcast, but I can't remember what I gave it. So
that's okay.
I think it was something like 7.5 is what I gave it, I think.
Yeah.
I think, that's roughly where I was with it. I did enjoy elements of it. I think just in general, I've struggled with certain parts of Academy. But it was a strong episode, I think, and it definitely touched more on the elements of the show that I was more interested in. So
excellent. Totally. Gotcha. Peter.
I would probably give this one like an 8. So it did good, I think. My usual qualms aside, it did good.
Good things done, say I. All right, Peter, do you want to take us through episode 10?
Sure. Episode 10, Ruben Con. When an old enemy resurfaces as an existential threat to the Federation, Nala must outwit a vengeful foe with a personal vendetta against her. All three of these are the same person, by the way. As the cadets and instructors undertake a dangerously, seemingly impossible mission to save everyone and everything they hold dear.
So dramatic.
I know.
Oh my gosh. Ellie, let's talk. What's up?
So yeah, I enjoyed that this episode was the wider picture, the bigger picture. What I really liked was that we had. I liked the cliffhanger or the kind of ending we had of episode 9, where we had Anisha and Nala kind of coming face to face. And I liked that the kind of baseline of this episode was 2 women against each other, but it wasn't in that typical way that female characters are often put against each other. It wasn't over romance, it wasn't over a man. It was a maternal conflict. And I really liked the exploration of that because both of these women really care for Caleb. And so it was really interesting to see both of their perspectives and both of them fighting, and there being kind of the face value reason for them hating each other, and then also the layers beneath that as well. And so I really loved that. I think between Holly Hunter, Paul Giamatti, and Tatiana Maslany, we had some absolutely fantastic performances in this episode. I think it really, really shows when you've got like Academy Award winning / nominated actors in your show, you know, they just elevate the scenes. So I think that worked really, really, really well. For me, the kind of the cadet stuff is the things that I struggle with a little bit more. And I do think there were some strong moments with them. I commented on when we came to episode 6 that I liked that when there was a crisis, the cadets weren't just kind of shuffled out of the way so that the adults could fix the situation. It was kind of used as a teaching moment. And they were kind of supervised, but they were still kind of given this opportunity. In this instance, I feel like it went a little bit far in as much as, you know, Caleb is asking a question and it's kind of a life or death situation. And that's when Reno goes, well, what do you think? And I'm thinking, no, this isn't the time to say, what do you think? This is the time to go, yes or no. Let's get on with it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No time to mess about. Yeah.
But this isn't a teaching moment where we've got a whole team of other Starfleet officers that can jump in at a moment's notice. This is we've got. So maybe now's not the time to be questioning things and just give them the answer to their question.
Right.
So there's a little bit of that. But yeah, overall, I think it was really worked for me. I said it's interesting that you were saying that you like the kind of the quips and things, because I think for me the thing I've struggled with a lot in this show in particular is them not for me the balance of serious and silly is not right for me. I think moments that are building up to be serious are undercut by a quip that takes me out of the story. So Genesis finally gets her moment to be in the captain's chair, and it's built up to be this really powerful moment for her as a character, and it's completely undercut by her going, wait, I need to pee. And for me, that just didn't work.
I think I thumbed down that as well. Metaphorically speaking, that was a thumbs down for me too.
Yeah, I think that's a problem I've had with the whole season is the balance between the silly and the serious. I don't think they should shy away from telling a serious story. And just because your target audience is a younger demographic, it doesn't mean that you can't give them serious stories to watch.
Right.
They don't need a joke every 5 minutes. And I do feel there's a couple of times where they've kind of try to write how they think the youth will speak, and it's kind of just a bit kind of more cringe than anything else. It's just like, is that really?
It's the hello fellow kids phenomenon.
For me, that's not really worked for me. I think there was some really great music in this episode. I'm a sucker for the score in anything, but this episode in particular, there was some great music. There's also just been a lot of tropiness. There's lots of tropes throughout this show. So, you know, I didn't really have an issue with, Caleb and Tarima using Tarima's kind of abilities to track down his mom. I think that worked really well. But then when you take a moment to, be inside each other's head, and he literally was like, it's you. It's always been you. And I was like, that doesn't even make sense in the context of what you're talking about. It was just like you needed to get that line in somewhere.
Yeah, right.
It was just a proper eye roll moment. I was like, oh, there we go. There's that cheesy line that always has to be said when there's young love.
Yeah, very Dawson's Creek, without a doubt.
So it's very mixed for me. I think there are elements that I really, really enjoy, and there are elements that really take me out of it. And that's something I've struggled with throughout this whole show is just I really like some parts and I'm not so keen on others. So it's really mixed bag throughout. But overall, I think it was a strong season finale, and we wrapped up that story nicely. And I'm intrigued to see where season 2 takes us. Yeah,
without a doubt. Peter?
So I thought that this was pretty good. I have some quibbles on things. on this one in particular. So the stuff with the cadets on the ship, I mean, aside from what Ellie was already talking about, I thought that Reno did generally a good job of being in command there. And it was one of those episodes like, I actually kind of like this character. But there were a couple plot points / technology stuff that didn't really work for me. While it was cool that the Athena was able to pretend to be blowed up, and I said that wrong on purpose.
No kidding.
The fact that they were relying on the doctor's mobile emitter, which is 4 centuries out of date, at least at this point.
Right. But it's also 700 years old. You got it in the 90s, the 1990s.
Yeah.
So do that math.
It's a time travel paradox problem. But regardless, the technology is 400 years out of date.
Right. Yeah, 29th century.
And so it's like, no, that shouldn't be your solution.
Especially when the enemy is so high tech.
Exactly.
They have so much technology.
I get using that tactic, and that's not a bad tactic.
Yeah.
But where it came from just didn't work for me. And also the fact that now the emitter is being taken apart by programmable matter, and then somehow it gets reconstituted, and the doctor is now has aphasia for plot reasons. That was just, I didn't like that. I mean,
it's bad glue.
Maybe it works for others, but it felt like it was an unnecessary addition to drag out we need to figure out what's wrong so we can show that this is difficult. It didn't work. Not for me. So, I mean, the fact that what got through was the relationship between the Doctor and Sam that helped break through. Okay. Fine. That makes a nice tie-in to the whole thing that they've added. So there was that. Obviously the telepathy thing was like, okay, whatever. I mean,
it was.
I have the same feelings about that as Ellie does. So I won't say more.
It's always been you. It's too much. It's too much High School Musical.
I think
drama club.
I think that was literally a my forehead to desk moment.
Not even a hand to forehead.
No, it was just a full bam.
Boom.
But the other thing that kind of, how do I say this diplomatically?
Oh boy.
I didn't like the trial.
It's too much.
It's
I liked it.
Here's the thing.
I did. But,
here's the thing.
But tell
it's
me.
not that it's too much or that a villain would do that, right? Q's done it. Other people have done it. It's not like it's out of the question or that I find the whole concept bad. It was, for me, to say nothing of Paul Giamatti's performance, because it was brilliant. His character didn't feel like he had the gravitas and authority to be able to do that. Like he's a thug with a button, not someone who has any sort of moral authority to judge the Federation.
But he's so quippy.
I know, but if you want it to have weight.
Yeah,
If you
Okay.
want it to have weight, you need to have him have, like, he has the moral high ground and he has the authority to make this distinction. And being, Hondo Onaka with fewer quips, like, it's sorry, that was a little mean, but just because he doesn't have that same level of authority, like Q, he's like master of the universe, whatever. And even though we know he's full of shit, we know that he has more wisdom than we do, allegedly, and that he has the power to enforce this of his own will, right?
Right. Just
and
snap the fingers, right.
And for Nusbraka, he doesn't have any of that, and it feels more like a personal vendetta, which I get. He's kind of a terrorist trope,
right?
But when you take that terrorist trope, then it feels more like it doesn't have the same sort of weight. And so then when his whole argument comes apart because he had one fact wrong, it doesn't really work for me. because
he doesn't go like, oh my God, I've got to reconsider my whole life.
Well, because then he freaks out. And
at least he doesn't break down and say, I've got to change my. He doesn't have an Ebenezer Scrooge moment.
Yeah, he didn't have a Scrooge moment, and that's good. But like the thing is, if so because he has this big whole thing and he's trying to build this argument how the Federation doesn't care about anybody and and he's got points, he has evidence, but then the linchpin is that his inciting moment was incorrect. While that may be a jurisprudential thing that can get you out, as a logical argument, that premise may be incorrect. So now you create a new premise and all of your points still stand. And does the conclusion still follow from that? If so, then you still have an argument. And so it felt like it was a cop-out of the whole trial. And it's something that happens. And it might just be because I have philosophical training, and so it annoys me. Mm-hmm. But it didn't feel like it landed right in terms of how you solved the problem for that particular thing. Maybe it'll come back in season 2. I don't know, and that's why we didn't end it satisfactorily. But that was real, like the technological solution the cadets figuring out and like all of that stuff, that was fine. Like shutting down the bombs, like all of the normal Trekkie things worked for me. But it was just the trial itself and how it hinged specifically on him misunderstanding that his dad did something dumb.
Right.
And
my dad didn't hug me enough and then he blew up.
Yeah. And then Caleb's mom saying like, you've stolen my son for the Federation and he hates you. Why are you doing this? And then the solution is, well, that's not what happened. Okay, well, that premise is bad. And then it's like, well, your dad was an idiot and blew himself up. Okay, so that premise is bad. But then him show it didn't quite. I don't think they disproved all of the stuff, and other than just it was a hard time and we had to make hard decisions. That is an argument, but because of all of everything else that was going on, it didn't quite punch through. I don't think it was a convincing argument. I'm not saying it wasn't right. It was right, but I don't know. I'm being a little too rambly, but that was my thought on this episode.
Everybody gets one. Yeah, I first of all, Rubicon. I looked at it as Rubicon, like the classic, and not realizing
that's what it is. It's a play on the name.
Yes, well, not that they swapped in the name of my favorite sandwich, so I therefore have dubbed this episode Ruben, the tastiest of sand particles. But I was really repulsed, like Ellie was, by the High School Musical Drama Club moment, and they also stole the Troy finding Tom Hardy's character in Nemesis using her magic powers.
That is what I was thinking. Yeah.
But I mean, it's like, what are you going to do with the Betazoid? That's what they do. So,
there's nothing wrong with
it. I was bemused during the trial because it's being broadcast on the, terrorist news network. I love the scrolls, the Athena, the gaudy treasure of the pompous Federation. It was just like, it was like watching Fox News, which I don't do, but
it felt like, I don't know if you've watched Legend of Korra or some other stuff where they have like news things and they have those marquees at the bottom, or like if you've seen stuff like, I don't know, Has Been Hotel or whatever, they have marquees running on the bottom that are legitimately hilarious if you stop to read them. So I thought that this was a nice little thing they did there too.
Gotcha. But there's no doubt that we jammed into a bunch of tropes, but in here it's not like it was kind of the trope-o-meter, but I mean, nice high stakes action for me, and enjoyed a lot of the moment, enjoyed some genuine character arcs kind of coming, I won't say full circle because obviously we have more show to watch. But my absolute favorite part of it, and again, it was like, oh, they're just doing it. And it was kind of evocative of, credits of like a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, was that great credit sequence with everybody's pictures at the end and stuff. I did kind of take exception that it said, hey, it's class of 96, which they're not the class of 96 because they're great. I think this takes place in 95. Maybe is it 3195? I don't know. I know that's getting way into the weeds with I think calendar stuff. Nobody, even Ellie, shrugging her shoulders.
No idea.
So that's okay. But And then they had the kid pictures, which were great. Tatiana's was the most adorable in my opinion, with those big long pigtails that crack me up. And I love the continual insertion of Stephen Colbert, who is one of my absolute favorite entertainers. I never miss anything he does. Is Specialist Krebs and his fur fly, is that going to be our, like Morn from DS9 for the show? But we've also never seen him, so I would love that. That's my big note for season 2. I want to see that Talaxian fur fly and whoever this dude is. So. But again, I guess I'm the bright-eyed one. This was a 9 out of 10 for me. It wasn't perfect, but there was enough in it that the grade overcame the tropes, at least. So, Ellie, how about you?
I think it might have been similar to episode 9, to be honest. I think it was still around the 7.5 mark. I will have to go back at some point and remember what I gave it back at the time, but it was around there.
Okay. Fair enough. Gotcha, Peter.
Yeah.
I know you had a big middle piece with the trial that threw you off your axis.
Quick random thing: I did run through my star date calculator, and the current date was 3192, so it would be 96.
Oh, okay. There was a lot of back and forth about that. And again, I look at Memory Alpha, and good for you for having a real star date calculator, especially with the new layout of star dates, because there's an extra digit in them now. So, Rocco, you'll have to send me that
link. It's the same system. It's a bigger number because it's further in the future.
Okay.
I would probably give this one a 7.5.
Okay.
Because I think that a lot of the plot hinges on that argument in the courtroom, and I don't think it works very well. So I just have to knock it down a little bit for that.
Gotcha. Totally fair. All right. Well, let's wrap up the season. Doesn't have to be anything gratuitous, but outside of these 2 episodes that we talk about, any big favorite moments, particular favorite episodes, maybe big missed opportunities. Again, we have another season, but we also know that it's the end, sadly. And we don't even necessarily know if they're going to, because there hasn't been any conversation about reshoots. I know that when they found out of the cancellation of Discovery, we were on the cruise at the time. Doug Jones was on the cruise, and he talked about it in a panel the same day he found out. He says, I got up at 7 a.m. and was told to be on a Zoom, and they told us the show was ending, and then they brought them all back to shoot a better ending. So we have I don't know, and Ellie, maybe you know something differently if that has kind of been discussed. But let's at least kind of focus on that. So with the show wrapping up, like when looking forward to season 2, what are a few things that you're really hoping to see? Ellie, go ahead, please.
I'm hoping to see a little bit more exploration of the Doctor. I think one of the things I think that was a missed opportunity in season 1 was more exploration of him. And I know they obviously were wanting to explore the new characters more and establish those and those relationships. But even when we then did get episode 8 and we had the Doctor's story, I feel like we very quickly glossed over what could have been a really interesting episode in itself of the Doctor raising Sam. And it was over very quickly. So I'm hoping, I don't think it's really a secret that they perhaps brought him back as a draw to get kind of existing fans interested in Academy.
The hook.
But because of that, I was expecting more from him. And I think at the beginning, they kind of set up this idea that there was things that he knew or things that he'd experienced or lived through. We never really delved into that very much. So my hope is to maybe explore that a little bit more. I think a highlight for me of this season, my top episode was episode 4, Vox and Excelso. And I think for me, that's the episode that showcases the best balance of what an Academy show should be to me. I think it had the best balance of here is cadets learning something at the Academy, but it also has a wider story that involves the Klingons and the Federation and negotiation. So where some episodes felt like they leaned too far into the kind of silliness and the high school drama, and others felt like they were more like an episode of Discovery than an episode of Academy. I think Vox and Excelso was the best balance of that. So I'm hoping that season 2 follows that kind of structure more in its episodes of balancing lessons and teachings and the bigger picture of the wider world of Star Trek. So I think they're my 2 major hopes for the season. Okay. As for the ending, I don't know if this is true or not, but I've definitely heard that they finished it on a cliffhanger. So I would assume that they are going to reshoot an ending, because it would be very unsatisfactory if they end it on a cliffhanger that will never be
mildly unprofessional too.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah. And they can't pull the the Star Wars, like, we're going to wrap it up in a comic series. Nobody wants to hear that shit. Like, there's no doubt about it. Peter, how about you?
Things that I hope for. I also want some more from the Doctor, because I agree that was one of the major missed opportunities. I know that when we had Life of the Stars, I think was the episode where it happened, I definitely complained about how we didn't have enough character development to justify plot elements in that episode. Because we just didn't know what had happened to the Doctor in the intervening time. And so it relied too much on our like of the character to make the story work. Right. And I just don't think, anyway, no need to rehash. But I think that's something that they could do more of, seeking the wisdom of the elder Doctor to help with lessons and such. I hope that we get a little bit more of how they're thinking of integrating the War College with Starfleet Academy, because I assume that's where they're going to end up going.
Right. More Kelrick, more Raoul.
Yeah,
he's our buddy now, so we're going to plug for him.
I mean, I haven't been too quiet about the fact that I enjoy the character.
And you even got to tell him personally,
and I did,
which was pretty cool.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool.
So, so I obviously I want to see more of that character, but I also want to see how that works. And to be a little, like, this is going to be a little silly as a hope. I want more location shots. I want to be outside. Like, the Athena's pretty, but the Academy is a campus. There's a lot of, it's got a lot of room to do stuff. And you also have like all of Earth that you can go pull.
Right. Yeah. Bounce around Earth a little bit. Yeah. Especially 1,000 years in the future.
It's
I want to see what's going on in Chicago or New York, London.
We're going to go do a field trip to Chicago. We're going to go do a field trip over to here. Why have we never seen Washington, D.C. in Star Trek before? Well, it got blown up in World War III. I don't know. Like something like that, you know, where it's like we haven't seen a lot of these places in the future at all. Sometimes for good reason, because it's like you don't want to, like, especially with World War III in Star Trek history, you don't necessarily want, like, you know, your favorite city got blowed up. You don't necessarily.
Hope you didn't like Detroit too much.
But so I would like to see, like, getting out, but not necessarily like out to other planets, because that's not really what Academy is about. It's not about exploring strange new worlds, but getting out of the campus to do other things, I think, would be interesting. And not taking the Athena as a ship to go do things, but just like get outside, you know, go to Vasquez Rocks. I don't know, do something where you're not just in the building.
Go play outside, kids. What all of us parents tell our kids anyway.
I like playing
outside. Some fresh air. You know, come back when the streetlights come on. That was Gen X.
But it's just one of those things. I wouldn't, like, they had some shots that were in the courtyard, but I think they could have used a little bit more. Like, I don't know, do Parisi squares in the yard. Like, you got an opportunity to show Parisi squares because it's a thing that the Academy does. Like, do more of that.
You're right. Right. Totally. If there's a cliffhanger and I won't say, oh gosh, we're going to riot, but it would be a real crime to the show if they didn't do something to try to rectify that. But I'll repeat not only about the Doctor and kind of figuring out, you know, a little bit about what makes him tick and maybe what's happened in the last several hundred years. Kind of the same thing with Holly Hunter's character. You know, she's 400 years old. What has shaped where she landed? You know, what did it look like? You know, jump us back to when the burn happened. What did that look like first person? What did it, you know, how did it impact her, you know, when her son obviously died in that tragedy, you know? So flesh it out a little bit. And again, you know, we run into the continual, it is the way it is, but it also sucks when you have 10 episodes instead of 26. You've got to really, you know, ratchet down how much you can do and different ways you can explore, which would, of course, wouldn't be as much of a factor if we knew the show was going to go on. So, I'd like to see, you know, with the adult characters, as it were, fleshing things out a little bit more, but even a little bit more about the backstory of our younger characters, because we obviously got to see, Series Acclamation Mill was my favorite episode. But again, that gave us a nice taste of the past in giving us that closure that we wanted for Deep Space Nine that we've always wanted. But Also in, Cozine, we got to get a little bit of background on Glitter, Barfing Glitter Boy's story. I never remember any of the characters' names, Ellie, I'm sorry. I'm really bad at it. I was Dorito. Is that it? Yeah, there you go. Dorito. I'm going to call him Dorito. But, and obviously we got a lot of Ezra's backstory, Mr. Muir. But yeah, let's learn a little bit more about Genesis' backstory, Michigan's own Bella Shepherd. And so, yeah, which is all the things that you get out of any show as time goes on. You get a little bit more pieces of everybody's backstory as it sprinkles into a story happening in the present. So I'm hoping that's what we'll see. I know Bob Picardo talked on the cruise on stage about some of the great things coming up, and this new recurring guest star says, because I was in his, he does a charity auction for the Planetary Society and for PanCan and for other organizations that are charitable organizations that are synonymous with Trek. And he said, I have this signed poster. It's also signed by 2 new people from season 2 that I can't talk about. So whoever bought that poster, if they could figure out what those signatures are, they know something that we don't know, and maybe somebody has already decoded it, but I haven't heard it. So I'm looking forward to all those things. So my spider senses tell me we'll probably see this show same time next year, because they're usually on a 12-month calendar. Ellie, unless you've heard something differently.
Nope, I don't have an inside scoop, I'm afraid.
No problem. Well, we will all learn it as we go. All right. Well, that wraps us up with season 1 of Starfleet Academy. To me, very satisfactory. I feel like it's the first season that they got right for all the right reasons. Not perfect in any way, shape, or form. A lot of things you've heard us talk about here. But as we know more about it, we will. And our guest has been Ellie. Ellie, it's awesome to see you. You are going to be our go-to person when we revisit Voyager, when we revisit Prodigy, and just absolutely anytime you're available, because we love having you here. Oh. So thank you so much for coming on board. Where do people find you out there on the internets?
Well, obviously you can find me at TrekCulture on YouTube, but you can also find myself and TrekCulture on most of the socials. I think TrekCulture has kind of stepped away from Twitter, but other than that, we're on all the socials. I'm trying to kind of build up our social platform a little bit, make sure we're posting a little bit more consistently, and obviously my personal page is on there as well. I have a pretty unique name, so it's not hard to find.
Right. Absolutely. Such a great name. Little Child. Great last name. Well, cool. Well, we're going to let Ellie go. We'll take a little pause while we do that. And Peter and I are going to be back to talk about Ellie's big blind spot, Star Trek the Animated Series, and continuing our top 5, bottom 5. So we'll be back in 2 seconds. All right. We're back. Again, go check Ellie out on all her socials and TrekCulture as well. She and Sean Farrick are great friends of ours here at the show, and we'd love to support them. So, all right, we're continuing now with our new segment, which is kind of top 5, bottom 5. Obviously, as y'all know, we wrapped talking regular episodes quite some time back. Then we talked about The Center Seat, which was an amazing documentary by the Nacelle Company and our friend Brian Volk-Weiss, who we actually have a new interview with him coming up, which will drop here in the next couple of weeks. I say without having the schedule in front of me. But yeah, this, so we thought we'd take the series in little clips before we get into doing analysis of episodes again within the second part of the show. We thought we'd give you a little bit of highlights and therefore also kind of give you an informed take of maybe, there's so many different views with Trekkers who have just started, or they're somewhere in the middle. You're a casual fan, maybe you're becoming a more serious fan. And it's funny, I kind of joke with Ellie because we've had her on several times, and it's coincided with us talking about this show, which she has not seen, because she's a newer Trekker by her own admission. Even though she does it professionally, she's still going through and seeing the show. So this is a one that a lot of people maybe they've not seen it, and maybe they're not even aware of it, which is crazy. But we're going to be talking about the original Star Trek animated series. So this aired, just to give you a little bit, if you're like, I don't even know anything about that. This first aired on NBC, which is the same as Star Trek, the original series, with 22 episodes between September of 1973 and October of 1974. My brother was born in October of 1974, so that's significance. And kept running on NBC through 75. The series was produced by Filmation, which is a studio that later went on. The most famous thing for me was to produce Masters of the Universe, which was He-Man, which was a
right.
huge cartoon when I was a kid. When I was 6 or 7 years old, that was the big deal. But the episodes were scripted by professional science fiction and Star Trek writers, including Larry Niven, D.C. Fontana, Samuel A. Peoples, and David Gerald, who has been on our show. Some of the stories, and sequels produced were More Trouble, More Tribbles, which was a follow-up to The Fabulous Trouble with Tribbles, which we talked about last time. Once Upon a Planet, a sequel to Shore Leave. Mud's Passion, which was a follow-up to Mud. All of the cast was present with the exception of Walter Koenig, because as we talked about when we covered the animated series back when we talked about the center seat, they couldn't afford to bring everybody back, and he kind of got the short end of the stick. But yeah, we had and then we had a couple of new characters as well, voiced by existing voice actors. We had, I thought they were going to, there we go, Eric's and Maress. And Maress was our first Cation character, which was an anamorphic cat, which we got in our next iteration of an animated program on Lower Decks. And then Eric's was a kind of alienish looking guy with a third arm coming out of the middle of his chest. Very something that they could not have pulled off in television in the 1960s or 1970s. So I thought that was pretty great. But anyway, ran 22 episodes.
He was an Idosian, for those of you who want to know.
I feel like that never gets brought up. So thank you for that piece of information. So Peter and I are going to be totally blunt with you. We didn't rewatch any of these while we were prepping for this segment, and but again, we also really didn't last week with
we didn't.
Star Trek the original series. But the episodes are so synonymous. Peter and I have seen. I'm gonna conservatively estimate probably each one of the episodes we discussed probably a half dozen times. Yeah. So we're very familiar and have watched the entire series more than once. Where with this, I can't make that claim. No. But there will come a day when Peter and I will watch it again, and this is a few years down the road, when we will talk about the show by having done a notes watch and being very specific about it. And in our random episode segment, episodes of it will come up, and one of which did recently, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it did, yeah. I don't remember which one of them.
I think we did one. But it was a pretty good one, because it was about Dr. McCoy, and they got accused of a crime of something on an alien planet. Yeah, there we go. But anyway, we're going to do our best. But again, it's 22 episodes as opposed to 79 of the original series, or as we get into later ones over 100 episodes, 175 episodes. So we're going to talk kind of briefly, but I guess my goal with this, and Ellie, hopefully you're listening as well. Maybe this will give you a little sprinkling of some of the things to look forward to. Maybe give a little bit more impetus to go out there and check it out. So, Peter, let's get rolling. Let's talk top 5. Not ranked in order, and it doesn't have to be, hey, I didn't want to choose this one because it's an obvious choice. Just whatever, when looking at it, you thought, okay, I read the summary, or I'm remembering that I watched it and I liked it, or I read the summary and I'm remembering that I hated it. That's why it went on the other part of the list. So go ahead and feed me one that you enjoyed.
Okay, so one that I quite enjoyed was the counter clock incident, which I believe is the last episode.
Oh man. And it's funny because it landed on my bottom 5. So we killed 2 birds. Fair. Yeah, they landed on my bottom 5. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. So the reason that there's a couple reasons why I enjoyed this episode. It is cheesy. This is classic animated series territory. It is cheesy, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about this is when we get our first time seeing the first captain of the Enterprise, Captain Robert April,
which they turn around and change the character's race,
which then they recast and retcon in Strange New Worlds. But this was the first time that we saw the character. Him and his wife are now like ambassadors, and they're traveling to another planet.
Right.
And so I liked seeing that character. The whole premise of the episode is like they get hit by this anomaly that starts everyone aging in reverse, basically. So by the end of the episode, everyone's a baby, which is obnoxious. But
I did, and that was my. I don't know if you're familiar with the 1980s animated Muppet Babies, but that's
I am aware of it.
Like,
yep.
Super corny. But again, it's funny because it's tough to judge any of these by a measuring stick of it really didn't hold up against the original series. Well, how could it?
Yeah.
Because it was very differently produced.
Yeah,
But
it's-
yeah, for me, the Muppet Babies thing, the
Yeah.
execution didn't seem to land with the premise. Because the premise is very classic sci-fi, very classic Star Trek. But yeah, it was just like, okay, everybody's babies and white, like that.
Well, I thought it was interesting because like they became babies and like that was a little silly, but I mean,
Yeah.
Spock took a little bit longer because he's,
just like
we hadn't
the
settled on
Deadliers
like
right.
how old Spock was officially, and so Vulcans age more slowly. So like they made it work, but
Right.
but it was interesting for me because it like the whole kind of premise of it is April and his wife, who are former Starfleet officers, have to take over because one, they have the capacity, and then two, now they have the strength and ability to be able to do so.
Right.
And so they have to save the day again. So like bringing someone out of retirement to save it all and relying on the wisdom of the past to save the future from something that like we can't control. And I thought that I thought that premise was kind of an interesting thing to do. And it's definitely not something. It's definitely not a story someone would tell now.
Right.
It's a story that might need to be told again, but it's a story that wouldn't be told now. And I thought that it's just an interesting idea, goofiness aside, which is definitely over the top, but just like the idea of the episode and the fact that we got to see April. So that's why I put that one there.
Totally fair. I'll start it with, and again, I didn't go real inside baseball, being like, well, I liked it for this particular. Actually, it's like for the first episode, or one of the first episodes, was Yesteryear.
It was
which gave us some great continuity that bled itself into the regular show. And again, a lot of people say, well, I don't really. And again, there are all kinds of schools of thought on, is this canon? Is it like quasi canon? Is it retcon this and that? Like, they took some great elements of this, like they fleshed out what a Selot or a Salot, however it is that you want to say it, is. Mm-hmm. You also got to learn about Spock's childhood, because obviously the premise of it is a sequel to the very best of all TOS, which is, of course, City on the Edge Forever, with the Guardian of Forever, and another mishap, much like happened in that episode. So obviously it's a straight-up callback, and it's probably also written by D.C. Fontana. I don't know if I
think
have
the
list of episodes up here, but I can probably confirm that as we're talking.
It was, yep.
But yeah, absolutely. And this was episode 2, because I think I also alluded episode 1 for the notes. But they pop out of they're down looking at the Guardian, which nobody should do. They should have put buoys around the planet. Nobody ever goes back. But you can't have an episode that way. But they turn around, and then the person who's the first officer of the Enterprise is this Andorian guy, and they're like, Jim, why don't you remember him? So it's like, Kirk and Spock are the only guys who remember that that's not the right guy. Or is I don't even know if Spock's there at that point. Anyway, it's Kirk. He's in a like the Borg in First Contact, Planet Borg. They know they got to go back and fix the timeline, but we get him as a young boy and his time in the desert with the Selot, which then gets touched upon in Unification Part 1 in TNG, and we get to see the Selot in the Vulcan 3-parter in the 4th season of Enterprise. Really well executed, again, written by one of the best that will ever be for Star Trek, and it really pays off. So yeah, definitely top shelf. So what's another great one? Was this on your list? Did I snag one of yours?
I forgot to put it on my list, actually.
Okay. Well, then you have other great
reason.
ones. Go ahead. What's another great one for you?
Another one that I put on there was More Tribbles, More Troubles.
And you know what? I did the same as you. I totally left it off when I probably should not have.
Yeah. So this one is, again, written by David Gerald, because he wrote Trouble with Tribbles. And it's kind of more of the same in terms of just like Trouble with Tribbles and silliness, and they're everywhere.
Which is not bad.
No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's just
just like you talked about, if you're going to get a noob into Star Trek, you're going to send them to Trouble with Tribbles 10 times out of 10.
Exactly. Yeah. So this was like a revisit of one of our greatest hits. Let's hit it again and see what we got. And I think it did a pretty solid version. We got the Tribble Predator, which was hysterical.
The Glommer. I've got one right to my right over here. Yeah, I picked one up in Chicago.
I think it shows up in Lower Decks.
Yeah.
So this is just a fun one, and we got like voice actors to return, like Cyrano Jones and all these guys. So it's a solid.
What about your put upon bartender? Was he in there?
He wasn't in there. They didn't go back to day 7, unfortunately.
Bad.
But we got like the Klingons being annoyed with the Tribbles again, and we just added all the silly.
Was it Klingon? Was this the harsh pinks that Katie was talking about?
These are the
with the
harsh
Klingons
pinks.
with the really off outfits. Yeah,
and
you're right.
The Tribbles are just harsh pink in this one too. It's just it's obnoxious. But
I love it.
But it's fun. It's dumb, but it's your classic Tribble episode where it has to be dumb and silly. But I mean, it's still got like your normal kind of Trek story in there, but it's a lot of silliness and just Tribbles being everywhere. And because it's animated, you can have the Tribbles literally fall out of everywhere and fill up everything, which they do. And so, it shows the Tribbles to be the menace that they are, and it's great.
Right. Good enough for me. I realize I bumped you back to good when I didn't get a bad out of you. So how about a lousy
right.
episode?
We didn't get a lousy episode. Okay. Lousy episode. Slaver weapon.
Oh, I think that's on mine too.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Yeah. No, I put that in my good. I guess I liked it because I liked the big kitty, and they showed a picture of it, and I'm like, oh, big kitty makes me sad.
I mean, the Kzinti are introduced in this, so there's like some interesting stuff because the Kzinti do come back in Lower Decks,
right? And gets a shout out in Picard, which is
Picard.
And how I thought of it.
And I think the Kzinti gets mentioned. I think they may have even gotten mentioned in Starfleet Academy because the slavers might still be around.
Oh, gotcha. And I'll tell you what, I'll do the benefit just because I have it up on my other screen. I'll read a summary, and then this will help me. A group of Kzinti divert the shuttle Copernicus to retrieve a newly discovered slaver weapon. Yep. And they are wearing harsh pink outfits with highlights. I see a picture right here.
Yep. So I don't know. It just felt a little goofy to me and I know, more troubles is goofy, but this just felt like goofy to me in like I don't really like this sort of way.
Yeah.
And it was like, we're introducing these guys, and now it's all about like, now it's a power struggle between them because they have a strength hierarchy, and then we have the weak one who now has the weapon, but it's not the weapon that they think it is. And then it's just, I didn't really care for it that much.
It's just meh. All right, I'll give a good one now. And again, now I'm going to, like I said, have memory off over on the side screen. But I like the Infinite Vulcan. And it's easy to say that you two, you got that one as well?
It's not on my list, but it is it's good.
And again, I wrote Giant Spock. What else do you want? Because that bleeds right into a great throwaway gag that, again, throwaway gag in Lower Decks, which to me kind of proves this integration methodology that they do in Star Wars with the EU. Like, well, I liked, this bit, or I liked this, like they created Shizor, the Feline, the big green, they trickled it back into the Clone Wars or whatever.
Yep.
So, okay, now it's canon instead of just being like, no, it's the EU and it's a write-off. But for this one, a mad scientist and a race of intelligent plant life seek to impose peace on the galaxy. And I'm remembered of the plant life because I have that great Shane Johnson produced in the 80s, that Worlds of the Federation. Mm-hmm. And that was one of them. And when I saw that as a kid, when I started to get into Star Trek when I was 10 or 11. And so I picked up books like this, and I was like, I don't remember any of these. I don't know that I had seen the animated series until years and years later. So, but again, it was so standout because it was the head of a flower that had not blossomed with like little wispy. So it's like stuff you can never really pull off at all in television at the time. So I enjoyed that. And then you see, I'm scrolling through the entry. You see Kirk is struggling against these big purple tentacles and all this different stuff. So it was just fun. And again, giant Spock side by side with the giant. God, who was the other big the other big creature in this? Kelsey. Oh, Kelsey is 5. I'm trying to scroll through this again. We were really bad at, I apologize for our laziness and not watching these episodes. But anyway, I liked it very much. Let's see, what are the notes on this one? So, and this was written by Walter Koenig, because again, without being able to bring Walter back, they were able to toss him a writing assignment. And yeah, that was very good. It's supposed to have him check off in the play. So anyway, I definitely liked it for that reason. So
Yeah. Fair.
All right, what's and then yeah, I know we're kind of out of whack here, but yeah, give me a great one. Give me another great one you like.
Okay.
And I'll look these up as we're talking to try to throw in something extra.
Okay, so the next one that I kind of liked was the Territon incident.
Okay.
So this one feels very much like it's pulling from the old Superman comics, with the small city.
Candor, Bottle City of Candor.
Yeah, so I think Marvel has one too, but specifically, I think they were pulling from Superman.
Okay.
But so they go to this planet. We eventually find out it's called Terra 10. And there's just like this little colony of really, really tiny people. You find the Lilliputians, and
right. Interestingly, this is the 90th of 990 released Star Trek production, so it's just a little really at the beginning. But yeah, the Enterprise crew begins to shrink after radiation.
Yeah, they start shrinking, and they become
a one-line explanation. Yeah,
and it continues basically. As you think, they keep getting smaller. They can't reach buttons. They have to crawl over things. Like, it gets to be a little silly, and I find that great. And then eventually, they figure out how to fix it, which is using the transporter. Using the transporter buffer because it remembers your original molecular structure. Boom, done. This is not the first time TOS did the transporter fix. We did that with Enemy Within. But this is yet another time, which then continues into like Rascals and all sorts of other things, where the transporter is the solution to the problem.
Right, just like the holodeck is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
The holodeck always is the problem. And then even in Picard, because I watched Picard again recently, if you're standing in, like he was standing in the simulation of the Guinan's Earthside bar, and he's standing behind the bar, so you could just push a button to turn off the safety protocols. You don't even have to have it happen accidentally or give the computer a command, because he had to do that so he could pull a weapon out because Ro was standing there with him and Ro. That great episode.
Yep. So this one also ends with like them figuring it all out, and then they end up beaming the entire Bottle City back to the Enterprise so they can take it to a planet that's not going to blow up.
Yeah.
And
that's a good thing.
Yeah. And then they get made to be honorary Territons, and then we get the classic TOS and especially TAS like end on a laugh, which is
that's like, a big filmation thing, because they did that in every episode of
we came rather close to more than honorary, and then Kirk is like, yes, I'd say just about a 16th of an inch close. And
so it's not even remotely funny. Absolutely.
It's one of those like
no, now I got all right, I'm going to toss a lousy one in here, and it's lousy because it's corny, and that would be the Practical Joker episode.
That's on my list. Yep.
Yeah, simply because so just to describe it, after passing through a strange space energy cloud, that never happens, the Enterprise gains an artificial intelligence that is relentlessly bent on making practical jokes on the crew, the most famous of which is when Kirk turns around at one point and it is written in big black letters like it was a varsity jacket, Kirk is a jerk.
Yep.
Like in the blurb on the listicle I was getting the awesome. It says it probably sound better on paper, but in practice, this feels like an awkward draft of a Star Wars sitcom, which is funny because we finally got a Star Wars sitcom, or a Star Trek sitcom. I meant to say Star Trek, sorry. And eventually remembers it should be an adventure show, and it was painful, and it makes reference to my Kirk is a jerk. So that they're trying to be funny, and again, as you just mentioned, they usually end with a really corny joke, but this is a really corny joke for 22 minutes, and it's Dudsville.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is the first one though where we see the holodeck, the recreation deck.
Yeah. Which they've now retconned to being a piece of Strange New World. So it was, let's say, 10 years earlier, then buried. Then it comes up here, if you consider this canon. Then they shelve it for a century, and then it becomes a regular piece of technology. So the retconning and prequels are just bad bombing. Yeah. As Jar Jar Binks might say.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
It was a little interesting here.
Yeah. All right. How about another great one?
Oh, wait. Let me... Yeah.
Oh, please. Yeah. Yes. Let's dial it back, please.
Or I can give you one more stinker.
Please, yeah, let's do that.
So
We'll just keep mixing it up. What's your other stinker?
okay, so another stinker for me was the Magics of Megas 2.
Oh, I think I have that one too.
So this one,
excuse me, as well.
yeah, I think so. This one, basically, the premise is: what if the Enterprise crew met the devil?
Yes, I think this was talked about a lot. Was this talked about a bit on the? I either was watching a video or it was on Brian's thing. So
it was on the center seat. There's a lot. There's been a lot of talk about this one because classically, Roddenberry always wanted
atheist.
to. He's a humanist, and so he very often wanted to have the Enterprise crew meet God. He got shot down multiple times about that because that was like motion picture and some other things, and people were just like, "Dude, stop." Yeah. And so this one was another one, and they were basically like, "No, you can't meet Jesus or God, but you want to touch the devil, fine."
Yeah, we'll give you the devil. Yeah, it says, by the way, at the center of the galaxy, which is very easy to get to, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
Sometimes it's easy to get there. Sometimes it's impossible to get there. The Enterprise discovers a race of powerful aliens. Well, that's actually the plot of what was that one? The Blink of an Eye, or by any other name?
Yeah,
it was one of the ones where they met the Kelvins, and then they turned the one crew member into the.
They were from Andromeda, but yeah,
there you go. So they go to another galaxy, and then they got to go to a center. So that one line description is basically the other episode I'm talking about. Yeah. But anyway, you were saying.
Yeah. So basically, the idea is like they go there, they meet the devil. He's not the way that everyone thinks he is. He's actually nice, which is like, okay.
Nice devil.
And then they go to this planet, and he's now in trouble for bringing evil to Earth. And they have this whole like Salem witch trial thing. And it's just so bizarre.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then it ends up being like, well, Lucifer didn't really do anything bad. And it was like, oh, man.
Please don't. I do love the last line again on this entry. And again, feel free to go to Memory Alpha and kind of surf around. But the last line of the first line of this last paragraph, the Megans tell Kirk that if any other humans made it to their planet, they would be welcomed. Well, I just love that the alien race is referred to as the Megans. It's better than the Karens, right?
Yeah, that is that.
Yeah. But so you're right. Sticking in the Salem witch trials, it's like, what do you got going on here, guys? Come on now.
It's like there's nothing wrong with being like, edgy or whatever, even though sometimes like I will complain about the edginess and especially like sometimes when Roddenberry's getting into his like like religion, sometimes it's a little heavy handed.
Yeah.
So this one doesn't come across exactly that way, but it definitely comes across as dumb.
Yeah.
So
yes,
it's just like here, the devil is kind of this clownish character. Oh my gosh!
Well, I've got a dumb one that kind of skirts the line, but I put it on my ones that I like, and that'd be the Lorelei signal.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Is that one land on either one of your two?
I think I had waffled on putting it on my list of good ones.
That's all right. And again, we're doing this much more willy-nilly than we did the last segment. And it'll be better next time when we start talking about TNG, I'm sure. Because
it was one of those, I relied on my knowledge of these episodes, and then as I was making the list, I realized I didn't remember as much as I thought I did.
Exactly. Well, and again, this is just not a show that I think in common parlance, a lot of people go back to. But anyway, Lorelei signal, a race of beautiful women remains immortal by stealing the life forces of men. Obviously, this is a fable that is very common in our own history and naval parlance. The siren that sings the song that draws the ship to the rocks and creates the shipwrecks. Blah blah blah. Mermaids, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I love this because this was the one that put all the gals in charge. This was a kind of ladies doing it for themselves, and I think it kind of showed. Kind of broke that glass ceiling that gives us female leadership in Star Trek, which we didn't get a lot of, particularly talking about the absolutely dreadful final episode of the original series where we had Dr. Janice Lester that put out this oft misunderstood statement that, well, women can't be Starfleet captains. And there's been a lot of, we don't need to get into that, but there's been a lot of discourse about that in the last 60-ish years. But yeah, pioneered the female leadership by putting Chapel and Uhura in charge. And it led us to Janeway and Burnham and Ake, Holly Hunter's character, who I enjoy very much. But but again, silly sci-fi premise, but they all are. But they did something similar, kind of like Bread and Circuses, which is a great episode of the original series that I loved. That
It's a
revisited
fantastic episode.
the Roman Empire. I thought that this revisited a classic fable that, and I know, and again, skimming through it again, I didn't watch it again. I didn't know if this was kind of like Apollo was in the original series, where it was really on Earth and then they retreated to the they retreated into the stars.
I don't think that was that one. The Magics of Megas 2 was that.
Retreated to this, retreated to the stars after something, but anyway, I absolutely love it that the ladies got to do their thing. I really dug it, and this, I think, it's such a good episode. Let's find out who wrote this. No, it was written by Margaret Arman, who is not a name that I would typically associate with Star Trek. So perhaps this was a non-Star Trek person writing, which I think can give us a strong episode out of the ordinary. So, all right, how about did you just talk? Now your time to talk a good one for you.
Okay,
if you got any left, how many good ones do you have left?
I have 2.
All right. Well, you do one, and then you can. And how many bad ones?
I have 2 bad ones still.
Okay, so you did. So we'll stay consistent now. So
right.
Go ahead.
All right. So a good one that I have is the Pirates of Orion.
That was a good one I had. Look at that.
The
This
Orions.
Yes, this is our first simpatico regard. So
our first simpatico good one. The other one we shared was the bad one.
It was the Oreo. Oh, that was season 2, episode 1. Again, season 2 only had 6 episodes, so they figured out pretty early on. They're like, nobody's watching this. We're gonna go ahead and cancel it. But while Spock lies ill, Orion, and that's a Lower Decks joke. And if you haven't watched Lower Decks, go check it out, because this is revisited within that show, and it's a joy. Orion is the proper way to pronounce it. Pirates hijack the drug shipment desperately needed to save his life. Sounds like a very common trope within Star Trek, which is totally fine. But I enjoyed it very much for the fact that they got the Orions completely wrong. Because we know the Orions from the original series. We didn't end up seeing a male Orion until we got to Enterprise, if I'm not mistaken. But we did see the very stereotypical Orion slave girl, as it were, or dancing girl, or just woman. Of course, you had Susan Oliver in the unaired pilot, The Cage. You then saw that footage again, I believe, in the Menagerie, though I don't know.
It did show back.
And then, of course, you had the magnificent, I'm going to forget her name, but she was Batgirl in Batman 66, Yvette Craig in Whom Gods Destroy, who's frankly one of the sexiest women. I would take her over Marilyn Monroe, hands down, as far as the most beautiful woman of the 1960s era. But I digress. I love that they could not have gotten the Orions any wrong. We also get a fully fleshed out other Starfleet ship here, the Huron, and other officers. And did they manage? Is this one? Let me see if this is one of the ones where they. Oh, and they gave them a different symbol on their shirt, reigniting the assignment patch debate, which will never end between Peter and I and the rest of fandom. Assignment patches in the original series, some had them, some didn't. Then we get all the way back to Strange New Worlds and Discovery, and everybody has the Enterprise arrowhead.
Well, Enterprise had the Defiant.
You're right, exactly. But anyway, I think this was fun because I love the Orions, and we never really got enough of them. Now in Discovery, one of the things I actually enjoyed about Discovery when they got to the 32nd century was the exploration of the criminal underworld, and how when society collapses, it kind of reminds you of the apocalypse shows like The Walking Dead. Like when society collapses, the evil element will creep in no matter what you do. Yeah. Here come the pirates. Yeah, exactly. So here come the roving, murder gangs and stuff. So I dug that, and I like the Orions, and of course we obviously got a much more satirical take with the character of Tendi on Lower Decks. But this is pretty cool. So I enjoyed this one. So look at that. We have one that we agree upon. I like it. All right. How about a stinker?
A stinker for me was Eye of the Beholder. So the Eye of the Beholder. So this was the one where they kind of get stuck in a zoo again.
Oh man!
So they get stuck by these slug things with the hand on a trunk.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to. Okay, this was episode.
Yeah, the basic
15,
idea is beaming down to a planet to search for the crew of a missing ship. The crew is captured by its alien inhabitants. It's a menagerie.
So it's like why do it again?
Yeah, it's the same idea, but we also add the universal translator problem in there where they can't communicate. and then eventually they figure it out. They beam a young one up to the ship, and understanding happens eventually. But it's just it just doesn't add much, and it feels kind of meh.
Yeah. What's the episode? And I might do a heel turn here and do something. What's the episode where they're on the water planet with the Aquarians?
Isn't that Bem?
Is it?
Bem
and
is
that's
a water
one again.
planet.
That's yeah. There you go. And again, that's David Gerald. That's one. All right. I'll probably sub that one in as a favorite and knock out one of my own. Just because I think that's something that fully takes advantage of the of being able to be animated.
Yeah.
Because again, they never really did. They never did a location. They don't often do like locations on anything related to the ocean. One of my favorite issues of Marvel Star Wars, which I talk about all the time, is the first comic series that I ever read and followed, had to do with Luke and Leia being trapped on a planet that was just cities that the Empire attacked, and then they were stuck underwater and trying to escape, and one of the locals helped them. It's like, I really loved it. So that one really clicked with me, but again, really goes to underscore the fact that there's a lot of this that we just don't really remember, and maybe us dancing around a bit will either encourage or discourage someone from checking this out in the future. So with that being said, I probably we each have one left. Yeah, we just have one left. We can start to wind this up, but give me your last great. Was that your last great one?
No, I have one. I had the time trap on here.
The time trap. Wasn't that the first episode?
No, it was the 12th episode of season 1.
Oh, okay. The time trap.
It's basically an alternate universe thing where they like pass through an anomaly and then everything starts working backwards. Basically, the solution is very silly.
It's the Delta Triangle. This actually, and it's funny because it's on the map I have in my dining room of the big known space. That the Delta Triangle is in there. So obviously, the map maker considered that canonical. But the Enterprise gets trapped in the Delta Triangle, an area of space where many starships have gone missing. So it's like the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, it's exactly the Bermuda Triangle.
Which you never hear about the Bermuda Triangle anymore. It's
not anymore. No, I mean GPS.
To make matters worse, the ship has to defend itself against the Klothos, a Klingon vessel commanded by Commander Kor.
So we get another Klingon back, and I think he does come back to voice Kor.
Gotcha.
So again, there's just some fun stuff between the Klingons. We get some really wild starship designs in the graveyard of ships,
right?
Both Federation and not. So there's just some just interesting design things that they're able to do with animation.
Sidebar. That's a no on Kor, voiced by Jimmy Doohan.
Okay, so it wasn't him. Okay, they didn't bring Calicos back. Boo. But anyway,
boo on that.
So I just kind of liked seeing all the different things and the interactions. The solution is, fly backwards, so that's a little silly, but
like slingshotting around.
Yeah, but I think this was also the episode where they did like an inflatable version of the Enterprise to trick the Klingons. so there's definitely some really corny stuff that happens.
Oh my god!
But which is just par for the course for the animated series, but. It's interesting, and I like weird anomalies, and then all the weirdness about the lost ships is just cool.
Right,
I think.
Right, I agree. I could see that. I did not care for Once Upon a Planet.
That's fair.
Yeah. So upon returning to the amusement park planet, which is like, okay, well,
I think I'm switching my last one to that because the other one I was kind of like, well, is this a bad one or not?
Yeah,
I think this is. I'm going to switch and agree with you on this one for the last.
The
one.
Enterprise crew finds that the caretaker has died and the computer has taken over, creating havoc. That's just a rehash. That's just the Apple over again, or it's the Return of the Archons. It's like, and again, I know it's for a cartoonish.
Well, it's also we're going back to Shore Leave, but then doing Return of the Archons as well.
Right. So you've decided to take 3 episodes. You took one episode and stuffed. It's like a burrito, or maybe a hot pocket, but it's still frozen in the middle. Yep. So you took 2 episodes and crammed them into one of them to make a sequel to an episode that, as Sean had mentioned in our last episode, we didn't really care for. So, and again, all they did was jam in. And again, all I needed to do, because I was skimming through this, is that I needed to look at one image that is McCoy and somebody in somebody who I'm and then another guy in a command uniform, so it does not look like Kirk, having tea with the White Rabbit and Alice and a red two-headed dragon. No, thank you. I am all set.
Yeah, it's
this is a concept.
Yeah, I would agree that this is one of the stinkers. This is just it's Sulu, by the way. It's just
it is.
very.
God, I didn't think this. So you just because all you see again, it's from a distance, but he's not.
I
really
looked at him.
at.
I thought it was Sulu, and then I double checked the caption. It's Sulu.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's such a strange episode, such a strange decision to go. I mean, going back to the Shore Leave Planet is an interesting idea.
Yeah,
and doing something more there, but what they ended up doing was just like, no.
Yeah, just didn't need to be. So, did we end up? Did we?
Yeah, we agree on that one. So
do we agree on that
so
one?
I nixed the last one because the other one actually has some okay stuff. So it was like, well, I'll go with this one. This one's not good.
Did that bring us all the way? I'm trying to figure out
to the end.
Yeah. Another bad one. All right. Well, that's Star Trek: The Animated Series, and again, available on Paramount Plus. Needed to point out that all of the series are available on Paramount Plus, with the exception of Star Trek Prodigy, which I've been rewatching lately because I told both the delightful Bonnie Gordon, who was over on the Spotlight, and then we also told Aaron Waltke, who is, I believe that one is coming up here pretty quickly, that I would do so, and I have, and I've enjoyed it immensely.
It's
That's
just a great show.
And it's absolutely terrible that it's not available. It is available, of course, for purchase. But yeah, those are the 3 animated Star Trek programs, unless you want to talk about Star Trek Scouts, which we could work that in at some point if you felt like knocking out those, kind of
like
baby track.
3 minutes.
Yeah,
each.
we could. I get the feeling once it's over, we could talk about all of it.
Yeah,
pretty easily.
I don't feel like it's something that would be a whole long-term thing because they're 3 minutes apiece.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think there's a lot of extensive analysis we could do on that. But anyway, yeah. So I would, if you're like Ellie and haven't seen Star Trek: The Animated Series, hopefully we've at least informed a little bit of checking it out and kind of what you would expect. So, but anyway, with that is our show. We're going to be back in our next episode to talk about the recently released documentary about Beam Me Up Sulu, which we talked about in the news quite some time back. And we have lined up a special guest. I'm always hesitant to say who the special guest is in case it doesn't work out because I don't want to feel dumb. But it is actually somebody very cool in the community, in the podcasting and Star Trek journalism community, who has said that he wanted to talk about this with us. So I will save that to make sure it actually happens. Sometimes I feel like I never know. But yeah, and then we are back into talking about our top 5 and bottom 5 for Star Trek: The Next Generation. So that I'm very much looking forward to.
That one is going to be much easier.
Yeah, and again, I know I won't have to do any research since I know.
Easier in the sense of we know the episodes easier in terms of like having to choose them. That'll be interesting.
Absolutely correct. So, all right. Well, with that, that is our show. Peter, where do people find you out there?
You can find me around the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas on most social medias. I do not respond to much. I don't post much, but if you poke at me and want to talk to me about one of these things, I might say something.
He wants to talk about Star Trek: The Animated Series.
Yeah. I want to talk about the slaver weapon so much.
I don't know about that.
Otherwise, you can find me on our Discord, or you can find me on ELH's channel, YouTube, Twitch, Discord, where we do Star Trek role-playing games, amongst others. And you can also find me behind the scenes on Starship Excelsior.
Excellent. And I am on all the big socials with the exception of X. X is yucky. But I'm on as not only Secret Friends Unite, but also as myself at the C3 THECEETHREE. I will, as I get into the spring here, get back to doing my little kitchen chats, which you'll see really on our YouTube channel because I've kind of strayed away from TikTok, kind of heard some not great things about that. I know my wife is not really clued into it because of some changes that have happened since it changed hands. Don't need really to get into that. But our YouTube channel is also the place to find all of the video, which Peter handles, of our Spotlight interviews. That is our program, if you've not sampled it, where we talk to creators in the pop culture space, including folks from Star Trek, Marvel and DC Comics, Star Wars, actors, stunt people, all kinds of great stuff. So
even
you'll find...
So
say that, and Peter just did his first solo one, which you're going to hear in the next couple of weeks, about someone who works. And Peter, who was the guy again?
Jonathan Morris. He works on the Star Trek Voyager season 8. fan production.
Awesome. Very good. You got that to look forward to. By saying that made my Alexa speak back to me. So I'm going to try to wrap this up. But again, visit secretfriendsunite.com and of course, patreon.com/secretfriendsunite for all of our stuff. You can also get signed up to follow us on either Apple, Spotify, or any of streamers that are out there. We have 4 individual feeds. So please sign up to all of them. And please always let us, I don't plug this enough, rate us on that service. Let us know how you're enjoying the show. That pushes us up in the ratings and makes us more visible. So we would love to have you do that for any of our shows again. And our shows, again, just so you know, are this one, which is Code 47, Holocron Chronicles, where we talk about Star Wars, Secret Friends Unite, where we do a pop culture topic show. We have a fun one I'm recording a little bit about the first episode of Daredevil Born Again Season 2 with a new contributor and our regular contributor, Kurt. And of course, the Spotlight, which I was previously talking about. So, wow, that's a mouthful. I'm not going to do that live read every single solitary time. But with that, friends, as always, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring and to keep on trekking.
Peace and long life. Wow.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.